Welcome to the Creative Leadership Network, where insight meets analysis and conversation spark transformation. I'm talking about real stories, real news, and real solutions, y'all. So, this is TCLN Network, and I am IBK, and welcome in. So, I want to talk to you today, right? I just want to have some straight talk. So, of course, you know, I do news commentary, but I like to do it from an educational standpoint, right? There's a lot going on in our world, and some people are outraged, some people are angered, some people got a lot of information but it doesn't have clarity. Some people just want a lot of chaos, but then there are those of you who don't want chaos. You just want the simple facts and some simple perspectives and some solutions that help move us forward. And that's why TCLN Network exists today. Well, I want to talk to you today about ICE. Now, I've made some previous videos about ICE, and don't think for one moment that I have not changed my perspective on ICE. But I do want to bring some further insight, because the more insight we get, the more truth we get, or people who love to do commentary and comment on events that are going on in current news and mainstream. It is our job that even though we are not at NBC, ABC, and all these different places, it is still our job to stick to the facts, but to bring truth of experience, right? Not just to be out there saying any and everything, but to make sure that we bring in truth and we bring in experience to the best of our knowledge and to the best of our ability, okay? So, again, let's talk about ICE and the Trump era, but let's also talk about what is happening and what has been happening with ICE well before Trump ever got into office, okay? Because a lot of people love to say Trump this, administration this, blame this and blame that. And what they fail to realize is that I did my research, of course, you know I did, and ICE has existed since 2003. Trump wasn't even thought of, not at least as a president. Trump was thought of as who during 2003? You all know, the big time real estate mogul in New York City and abroad in the United States. All kind of people loved Trump before Trump became president. Black people loved him. Mexicans loved him. Everybody loved him. White people loved him. He was the man. He was the go-to man to read the book of Think Big and Kick ASS. He was also the man to go and read the book of The Art of the Deal, negotiation, right? In business, in life, and in real estate. So people did not have a problem with Trump until Trump became a president. But I want to talk about something today. You understand what I'm saying? That is going to be ICE. I'm going to bring you the facts, but I'm also going to bring you truth and experience, right? All of that and more coming up right here on TCLN Network. Don't you go nowhere.
Never stop, I'll get it if I want it. Gotta make to myself a promise. I won't quit, keep going till I got it. I won't give up till I'm on top, yeah. You know I'm always honest. There ain't no way I'm ever stopping till I'm on top, yeah.
All right, welcome back. Let's get started. So first, I want to bring to you some facts, okay? Now, I wanted to start with a few questions that I wanted to research so that I could have better intel to give you all. Because after all, this show is not about inflamed, it's about informed, right? So let's get started. I want to start with, when did ICE begin? You understand what I'm saying? Number one, just in case you didn't know, ICE began officially March the 1st, 2003, okay? And then I wanted to know, well, why was ICE created? Why did they create ICE, right? Of course, we know about immigrations and border control and all that kind of stuff and the reasons of why that exists, right? So let me stop for a minute. How many of you guys knew about who ICE was? Now, I'm not talking about people who are immigrants or people who, and I'm saying this for a reason, people who are from other countries and who migrated here. I'm talking about United States citizens. And the reason why I say that is because it's important to know how many of you actually knew what ICE was, that it even existed before Trump got into office. I would love for you, if you're going to be watching by YouTube, drop it in the comments below. If you're watching by Austin Public, you can email me at tclnnetwork@gmail.com. Again, if you're watching by Austin Public, you can email and just drop in the comments, drop in the email, how many of you actually, as United States citizens, actually knew that ICE existed? Well, let me be the first to start. I had no idea. I'd never even heard of ICE until Trump entered into office and all this stuff got into the media about immigration and about ICE. The truth is, I never even heard of ICE. Now, I knew about immigration. Like I told you, I've made plenty of videos before. I've explained that I'm from a border state, which is Texas, and I lived in California many years. Those are two border states, right? And I've explained over and over and over that when we grew up, and even in my young adult years, we always saw immigrants over here because they would put them on the back of trucks and they would take them out to go work. And we knew that they, in particular, were not actually legal. Why? Because they were trying to get citizenship. But they would also work under the table and do work and do labor to take care of them and their families, right? We knew that. And like I told you, we used to like sob because some of them would be promised citizenship, but when it came time, they would be denied and they would have to go back. And then there were those who got approved. They would be happy, and you understand what I'm saying? And that's how it went. We remember that. We remember the rejection. We remember talking amongst each other. Everybody remember how sad that really was. You understand what I'm saying? So when we rise to today and we see all the fighting and all the battle today, and races warring against each other, people talking, and some people act like they're on the side of them. Some people act like they're not because of all of the racial stuff has went on and the warfare. And when people started to get a foothold, people started stepping on, people that used to mourn with these same people because a lot of them did not get citizenship. Do you understand that? So let me get back to, that's why I asked that question. Never even heard, at least I didn't. Some people may knew because they work in certain departments and stuff like that. So they may know certain things. But I bet your bottom dollar, the average American, the average United States citizen, born and raised, I promise you, they probably never even heard of ICE until Trump got into office and all the stuff was on social media, all that kind of stuff, right? Now, why was ICE created? Let's get into that. ICE was established as a part of a major reorganization of federal agencies after the terrorist attacks on September the 11th, 2001. So that was the whole purpose, according to them and according to information of U.S. immigration, United States U.S. immigration. That's why it was first created, right? Under this reorganization, the enforcement and investigative functions of the former United States Customs Service and Immigration and Naturalization Service, which is known as INS, were combined into ICE. Okay? Now, the aim was to create a federal agency with broad civil and criminal authorities over custom, trade, immigration enforcement, and national security related investigations, making immigration enforcement inside the United States part of a unified national security framework. So that was the whole purpose, right? But it all started with according to them, the 9/11 attacks, right? The first leadership, now I want you to pay attention to this, because this is very important, you guys. Listen, we get fed so much information, but a lot of information we get fed is so false. And that's why I love TCLN, because you guys need to know the truth, right? With all the race baiting that's going on, with all the craziness that's going on, you guys need to know the truth. The first head of ICE, then titled Assistant Secretary under what was called the Bureau of Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Do you want to know who the person was that was heading this little ICE thing? Michael J. Garcia. Michael J. Garcia. Pay attention, because with all of the fights about Mexicans and Latinos being mistreated at the border, this is where ICE began. And this is who was in charge of ICE at that time, Michael J. Garcia. Now, this is what I want you to know about ICE before Trump. And during those times of 2003 when they got started, 2004, 5, 6, 7, all of that on up, before Trump got into office. Remember, the person's name is Michael J. Garcia. Not a black person, not a white person, as you know. Do you understand that? So pay attention, because I wanted to know, well, how many deportations happened during those times versus when Trump got into office? Because, guys, everybody listens to so much race baiting, right? Now I want you to pay attention to something. Trump is how old, y'all? He about, what, 70, 80 years old? Black people are how old? About 70, 80. Latinos about 70, 80s. People are set in their ways. They say certain kind of things. It doesn't mean that they're necessarily after a race all the time, after a people all the time. People talk a certain kind of way, guys. It's just the way it is, the way you like it or not. Our grandmamas talk a certain kind of way. Our grandfathers, our great friend, it's just the way it is. People are set in their ways. They think a certain kind of way, talk a certain kind of way. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're after a race all the time. Do you understand that? Now, according to a report by Migration Policy Institute, which is MPI, since the mid-1990s, enforcement reforms in 1996 in the United States of America has formally deported, pay attention, removed more than 4.6 million non-citizens. That total spans pre and post ICE years. Again, this is an educational news network. I take what's in mainstream media, which is trending. ICE has been trending for a minute, but I like to bring you the facts and the information. We got to get these facts right, guys. We got to get the information right. MPI also notes that about 3.7 million removals occurred since the establishment of the predecessor to ICE under the Department of Homeland Security, which is DHS, Department of Homeland Security, starting in 2003. This is now beginning to be the development of ICE. Remember, they merged these organizations together so that they could create ICE, okay? Subtracting, given a rough floor estimate of at least about 900,000 formal removals, okay? Okay, so we're looking at about 4.6 million, but only that counts as a narrow subset of removals and does not cover the decades earlier before that. So this is the information given by the MIP, which is migrationpolicy.org. Okay, now let's go on down. According to the historical aliens removed or returned data compiled by DHS, which is known as Department of Homeland Security, in the fiscal year of 2002, remember ICE got started in 2003, the last full year before ICE was created, there were 165,168 removed or returned cases. In 2001, previous to that, was 171,943. In 2000, there were 200. Now, in 2000, which is even before then, there were 2,444, 597, and so on, as you can see. Okay? So this has been going on for quite a while, well before ICE even existed. Now, when they developed ICE, again, the person that was heading ICE at that time was Michael J. Garcia, or at least a part of the leadership administration of it. Do you understand that? Now, with all of the fighting about, racism and all this kind of stuff, that is their race. Do you understand that? Now, I'm doing facts right now. But there's a difference between facts and truth. Now, let me explain what I mean by that. When I give you facts, I'm giving you, do you understand what I'm saying? What I believe that is hopefully reputable resources. I'm not going by data, he say, she say, we say, we all say. gossip column, all of that, and how everybody feel. Facts is supposed to be considered from reputable sources, from people who give us data, right? But there's a difference between data and facts, because who's to say it's even true? We don't know. We hope it's true, but we don't know. And let me tell you why we don't know, because we wasn't there. A lot of times we think we can argue about data and information and facts. The truth is we can't argue about anything that we did not bear witness to. I cannot sit there and argue with you over 1964. And according to my existence out the birth canal, I wasn't even born then. Now, my spirit may have existed, but I'm not a psychic and I ain't looking backwards. I'm looking at for what I can count for today in my lifetime and the truth that I can give today. So we're going to go from facts and we're going to jump in a little bit later into some truth of what I know that I know and know. You understand what I'm saying? And this truth has to do with a personal experience of mine that I recently have just came across, okay? So bear with me, stay with me. It's going to get a little bit good. Now, so the bottom line is this. Since 1996, the U.S. formally removed at least 4.6 million non-citizens. That is before Trump, that's before ICE, or going into ICE, but it was even back then, okay? Now, let's start moving up until when Donald J. Trump term began. This is important, guys. This is important because you have to understand who be in powers, at what time, what seasons, what the facts are, and what be going on, okay? Instead of just saying, wow, this happened and that's happening. They said this and they said that, and nobody really knows, you know? We can only, like I said, when it comes to these facts, we can only go by the data that we are given. So I'm giving you the data from reputable sources. Okay, according to Trump's first term, when U.S. Immigration and Custom Enforcement's ICE was operating, okay, again, ICE has been into existence since 2003. Trump's first term was 2017, okay? 200, I'm sorry, I keep saying 200. But anyway, 2,026 and 119 removals. In 2018, 2,056, 85 removals. In 2019, 2,067, 258 removals. And in 2020, 1,085, 88 for removals. Now, when you add that up under Trump's first term, this is his first term, there have been 9,000, according to U.S. Immigration and America's First Policy Politics, right? There have been 9,335 removals. That was his first term, okay? Now, I really wanted you to really get a gist of before ICE, when ICE was created in 2003, and then who was heading ICE or a part of that leadership at that time, versus, you understand what I'm saying, ICE and who, because ICE is ICE. Of course, we've heard of Trump saying a lot, right? So we know that he's been an enforcer of ICE. You understand what I'm saying? But what we didn't know was the facts. What we was listening to was a lot of race baiting, a lot of anger, a lot of hostility. But we wasn't looking at facts and numbers and truth because nobody's really giving us that. Do you understand what I'm saying? Well, here at TCLN Network, I give that because we need to know that. Now, again, like I said, I'm only going by sources that I can only hope is truly reputable. You understand what I'm saying? Again, I'm not there. I can only give you the truth if I was there. Now, I wanted to know about wrongful removals During ICE time, and there's a reason why I'm going here, because I'm going to go into the truth. I'm transitioning from facts and I'm going into truth. And I'm going to give you that truth a little bit later in this show. Now, a major audit, wrongful, we're talking about wrongful. That means that you are actual U.S. citizen. You are actual. You're not naturalized. You're not a Visa card. You're not any of that. You are born, you and your family, a natural U.S. citizen. According to a major audit by the Government Accountability Office, which is known as GAO, founded that between the fiscal year of 2015 and the second quarter of 2020, ICE removed at least 70 individuals whose records indicated potential U.S. citizens. Now, I know people say that's not a lot, honey. That is sickening. It is sickening for you to be charged with something, for you to be a natural citizen here and to be plucked up out of your land, and somebody didn't get it right. From one person to 70 people to 1,000 people to 100,000, it wouldn't matter. That's excruciating. Do you understand that? Advocacy group reporting and media investigation suggests that 70 deportations likely underestimate the true number. They said they underestimating the true number. I bet your bottom dollar they are. Because like I said, I'm coming with the truth a little bit later. People would hate to show that people are deporting Americans where they truly belong. And I believe that there's a reason why. Okay? Now, broader historical data support earlier problems between 2007 and 2017. A research center analysis known as Transactional Records Access Clearinghouse, known as TRAC, TRAC, Transactional Records Access Clearinghouse, known as TRAC, identified at least 2 million. Do you understand me? 2,804,000. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. I got too excited. Let me scratch that. I'm going to scratch that. Identified at least 2,840 U.S. citizens flagged as potentially deportable. At least 214 of those were taken into custody. My God, y'all better wake up and see what's going on. You know how they say wake up and smell a coffee? No, boo. They told you wrong. Because if you got to wake up to smell the coffee, that means you already awake. When you sleep, do you understand what I'm saying? You ain't smelling no coffee. It's when you wake up, you're dragging your tail to go make the smelling coffee. You guys better wake up spiritually for real. You better see what's going on for real in the United States of America, okay? I just wanted to share those facts with you. There's a lot of things that are going on out there. But guys, there's no use to fussing about race, fussing about this, fussing about that, when we don't know what we are talking about. Do you understand what I'm saying? So this has been going on many, many years. Now, let me transition from the headline all the way from the facts all the way to the truth. So recently I was on my way to go film and I was targeted by the police. Now, anybody who know my story, guys, you've been knowing about my story I put bits and pieces of my story up there all the time. Even from when I was a kid, I remember my first targeting. That's why when I have people who say, we don't care about her, forget her, this and this and that, I be like, it's okay, baby. Because when you go through it, everything going to be right. And don't expect me to turn flips and do japper claps when you were running around talking about you didn't care about me. You understand what I'm saying? Because I've been sharing my story for a while. I share it in bits and pieces, but I've been sharing it for a while. And I've had a lot of people say a lot of nasty things about me. But truth is finally revealing itself. Sometimes it takes a long time. It's like, God, why would it even take that many years? But it does. Sometimes it takes a long time, you guys. Do you understand that? Sometimes it just does. So, but anyway, at least God make it start coming out. So anyway, let me give you a little bit of truth about my experience. So about 2 weeks ago, I was targeted by the police, and I was on my way to go film. On my way to go film, and it's not the first time. You guys know that. I got videos, footage, all kind of stuff, right? Even being at a library, and let me say that correctly because they make fun of me when I say library. They be like, library, you needed to be targeted. You saying library. Well, library. So let me say it correctly, okay? Okay. Now, because people can be nasty, right? So now let me get back to it. So what actually happened is that when I went to the police station, of course, I encountered an attorney, right? The attorney had a file. Hold on. So the attorney that I first encountered, she had a file, right? And of course, they ask you questions and all that kind of stuff. So when I went before the judge, because you go wee hours in the morning, and you go before these judges, right? And so the judge himself stated, he said, I know and I feel that this is so wrong. He said, but we are bound by law and I have to go by law, which is cool, right? At least he was respectable. Because some people can encounter some harsh stuff, right? And so, but anyway, as I was talking to the attorney, she says, I have your birth certificate here. She said, but I was trying to figure out if ICE had a hold on you or what. And I was like, what? I said, what you mean, ICE? I said, so we got to talking, right? So she has this file. These people, but the point is, she never showed me the file. It wasn't until I saw a second attorney that I actually saw the real data. But she was telling me about it. She was like, yeah, they were saying this and A, B, C, D, F, G, and that you entered this country unlawfully. And I was like, what? Honey, I was born in Dallas, Texas at Presbyterian Hospital. And that you from Mexico? I said, Mexico? I said, oh, y'all like, and I cracked the joke with her because, when sometimes, when the world try to take you through stuff, you can either find it funny and, you can either find it maddening and break, or you can just find the humor in it. And I told her, I said, ma'am, have you ever known a Mexican to go by the last name Washington? I said, I don't think you ever heard. And she just kind of fell out laughing, right? Because everybody knows that when you're Black and you have the last name Washington, we know that comes from who? The teachings of slavery. You took on your master's so-called names, right? Now, mind you, my family is not originally named Washingtons. My grandmother married someone who was named after Booker T. Washington. So that's how, and when she took us on, that's how she changed our names to Washington. My family name is Patillo. So Pattillo. As a matter of fact, I have a journalist cousin that works out of Atlanta. So we wasn't raised together. We don't know each other that well, but we had a good conversation one time. I mean, an excellent conversation. And we talked for about 2 hours and stuff. I was living in Chicago at the time. And of course, he does his work and he's well known. He's a well-known guy. I don't use him as propaganda or his name or anything like that because that's just kind of wrong. Some people try to use stuff. No, I'm not going to do them like that. But we are family related and we know it. And as a matter of fact, if you really go do some deep search on our family, my family somehow is intertwined and kin to, believe it or not, Lyndon B. Johnson's wife. Believe it or not, it is. So I asked her, I was like, have you ever even heard of a Washington? Now, mind you, my family name from my grandmother, even when she got married, she moved that name. She did not give it up. She moved it to her middle name. So, back in the day, people move their names. You do know that. So they didn't get rid of their names. They move their original name to their middle name, and then they keep the marriage name, right? So there's only 4 people in my family, 4, with the name Washington. If that many. 3, 4. That's it. Because that ain't even our family name. Do you understand that? But of course, on my birth certificate, it says that on my birth certificate, legal birth certificate, born in Dallas, Texas, I tell people all the time, when you are United States citizens, there is a consistency on you. If you wasn't an immigrant and if you wasn't imported and you've been here for many years, the United States have what's called a consensus on you, a family consensus. So, everything's computerized now. So when you fill out everything, everything's computerized now. Well, back then, they would go door to door and find out who's who stays with who. And there's this long family consensus. Who your family is, were they considered Negro or Maluto? That's in the black line. Maluto is for the mix, you know what I'm saying? But you would see it in the consensus. You would see the dates, and they still have this today. You can go pull your own. You understand what I'm saying? They still have it today. So in order for them to know all this information and to somehow put an ICE case. Now, I want you to pay attention. When I looked at the dates, voila. So I was looking at the dates, right? And I was so glad with the second attorney, I got to actually see the information. And I was looking, I said, wait a minute, right? So mind you, ICE was created in 2003. Remind you, President Trump never got into office till 2017. And I want to remind you that this started, I'm going to give you the exact dates on my name, and 4 April. So 4/15/2008. They got one for 5/9/2007. They got one for 4/15/2008 and 4/21/2010. Now I want you to think about that. Who could have possibly been working in ICE and feigning something on my background like that? Who could have possibly done that? And you know how our minds are. We begin to wonder, was it a white person? Was it a Mexican? Was it a black person? Like, who would do such a thing? So my mind gets to roaming, right? It gets to roaming. Well, ain't that many people. The majority of people that work in ICE are immigrants themselves who migrated here, or it's a white people. I wouldn't think, and this how my mind rolling, because I got to be honest with you guys, right? I'm thinking in my mind, well, I wouldn't think that a black person who knows about the history of the name Washington and see that this person's last name is Washington and see that they have a black name would ever think that that person is from Mexico. So I'm thinking in my mind, it couldn't have been a black person. Like, who would do this? Who would falsify this like this, right? So then I started looking at other details, CPB and RGC and OB and just other stuff. And then I was looking at it, baby, I was all off into the lady's laptop. I was like, entry without inspection? What in the world? And I was like, I've never even been to Mexico. What are you talking about? Entry without inspection? Then they said they removed me to Mexico. Removed me to Mexico? I ain't never been to Mexico. And then they said that they've reinstated that I would be deported again. I said, oh my God. So then my mind just gets to clocking, walking. I'm like, my God, they done created a whole portfolio. So I'm thinking in my mind, okay, who could have possibly have done this? You understand what I'm saying? Who could have done such a thing? And then I'm sitting up there and I'm like, okay, so these are the dates. This is what they're saying. So obviously someone was creating a story, right? Creating a story, trying to make it look legal, trying to make it look right, right? Of course, I filed with the department heads and all the different people that I've needed to file with. I've showed proof of my birth certificate, social security card, everything that they need. You understand what I'm saying? But it just goes to show you who would plot that. Now, this is before the Trump era. Who would plot such a thing? You understand what I'm saying? Knowing that it is so easy. And some people say, well, maybe because I even thought that. I said, well, maybe somebody misused my information or something. But then I thought about it. I said, remember that little funny name that I have? When I grew up, guys, that funny name I had was the most horrible name at that time in my life. It was the most horrible. Elementary school, all kinds, everybody I met. It was the most horrible name. People would laugh at it. People would make fun of it because people didn't understand what the name was, what it meant, none of that. I think only white people did. And I'm being honest with you, because white people was the only ones who could pronounce it correctly, even tried to pronounce it correctly. They was the only ones that didn't laugh at it or mock it. If they really didn't understand it, they would try to say it as best as possible. But for everybody else, it was a beaky bookie, a bikey, just whatever they wanted to make fun. And they would laugh. They knew they were being funny, right? So it was not an acceptable name. And when you are a child who's been through abuse at schools and from teachers and all that kind of stuff, that makes it even worse because you're not honored and your name is not honored, right? But my entire name, if you look at my entire name, from my birth name to my name to Washington, being all of that, you will know and understand that I am the only person in the world with my name. So it wouldn't be hard, number one, to find me at all. It wouldn't be hard to find me at all. I am the only person in the world, not the United States of America, but in the world. When you put my entire name together, you can't help but to. Do you understand me? It's like, boo, it's only one of you. That's how unique God made it. I remember I used to go crying to my mother. I used to be so hurt. My mother would say, girl, what is wrong with you? She was like, honey, like, appreciate your name. My mother was a tough lady, right? She was just tough. Like, she didn't, I guess because she'd been through so much in her life and I didn't understand it at that time. But the world, she was a beautiful lady. Like, this woman was so pretty. She was tall, slim, beautiful skin, beautiful hair, beautiful eyes. And it breeds a lot of jealousy and hatred. It makes people walk into your life and strip you of that and try to make you the lowest form of what you were highly designed to be, right? So when I remember looking at pictures of my mom, I remember saying to myself, gosh, she was gorgeous, because she had them big old pop, like little light brown eyes, like not light, but they were like a cocoa light. And this woman was gorgeous, and her skin just gorgeous, and her hair, she had like that curly hair, but it was like that soft, looked like a little cotton ball, honey, and she was stylish and dressed, and she was beautiful. But for some reason, when she started going to church, she started dying for some reason. Like, she was just stripped of her beauty. And I'm just being honest. That's why I tell people, be careful of the churches and the places you go. She was stripped. That jealousy, that hatred. People think that jealousy, because you go to church, everything all right. And she just began to be stripped. And I remember that as a very young girl. And I remember just going through certain things. You understand what I'm saying? And her money, like all her money would be taken. And she would come home with her kids and couldn't even feed her kids, Like, it was rough. It was rough. But prior to that, she never was like that. You understand what I'm saying? My mother worked in social services. She was just this, and then everything just started going like downhill with her. And so, but to get off of that, I remember my mother would be tough. She said, why is you crying about your name, girl? Like, God gave you your name. That's what my mother would say, right? Now, mind you, I used to think, I couldn't accept that for all the negativity. Like, I just could not accept that. And there were monumental moments in my lifetime where my name would be revealed to me, and the meaning and the understanding and the fullness of it, that I would grow to appreciate it and understand it. But it wasn't until this ice thing that I looked up to God and said, oh my God, you knew exactly what to name me and exactly how different to name me, knowing that all these years ahead, this is what we will be dealing with in 2025. This is what we will be dealing with all these years. Now, all that time, I did not know that was feigned on me like that. Like I said, it wasn't until 2 weeks ago being targeted. I was moving out the way for some officers, and I moved off the curve so they can get by. They were coming by on bikes, and it was a tight curve right there, and they just automatically targeted me and made it seem like that I just wanted to walk in the street for some reason. And I wasn't even in the street. I just stepped off the thing. Like, I wasn't in the total, like, how you in the street where cars can come by and just go bam, And so it started from there, right? And then that's when that information unfolded. Now, mind you, all this time I've been going in life and hadn't even known that was there. And I think to myself, I said, God, maybe something was finna get ready to happen, that God needed to expose that at the appointed time. But I also think about, God, how many years did you keep me when I could have been deported just like those people and not even knowing, you understand what I'm saying, that would have been on me. And being so young and so ignorant. And at that time in my life, I was very ignorant during that time and never even heard of ICE. I would have been sitting there flabbergasted, like, now I got a lot of knowledge now. Like, I even know that if ICE approached you, you're not an American, honey. You are a United States citizen. You go by law. Because you could be talking about South America, North America, you could be talking about anything. They got all kind of Americas, right? So if you even approach by ICE, your thing is that, hey, whether they detain you or not, I am a U.S. citizen, because that's what law is. And that's exactly what you are, right? And I started thinking about stuff, and I heard this guy say on socials, and I just want to expound upon it, because I did hear him say on socials, he specifically told people, he said, listen, if I stop you, do not say that you're an American. American mean anything. He said, say that you are a United States citizen, because legally by law, that's what you are. But I want to expound upon that. I've traveled many, many times from Texas to California. I have relatives in California, all of that. And you know what? Each time those big fine, because they do be fine, honey. They be fine. They them big fine Latina guys. They will get up on them buses with those dogs and stuff, but they were always sweet. They, for some reason, they are so different from the people here. Like, they just different. I don't know why. Some of them here, they're so racist and they try to stomp on you and compete with you. But for some reason, those guys that stop you at that U.S. Customs, they are some of the sweetest dudes. And I've encountered them over and over and over for many times that I have traveled. Many times that I have traveled. So glad that Greyhound always gets your name and your ID and all of that, because you can track and trace all that stuff, right? So, but it's just so funny. Those guys would always, it'd be 2:00 in the morning. It could be anytime, right? Daytime, anytime. They come up there with the dogs. They make sure they check for drugs. And I thought about it when he said that, because what do they ask you? They never say, are you an American? Are you an American? Are you an American? No. You know what they ask you? U.S. citizen. They point to you, U.S. citizen, and they're always sweet and respectable. And I remember sometimes I used to feel so bad because I would see them take people off the bus. And I would be thinking to myself, wow. Because I would literally see them do that. They would have to remove them, either because of citizenship problems or either because of drugs. The dogs would find drugs up under the bus and stuff. And I remember one time I seen this dude, he got removed. And his family was up there and everything. And they removed him because he had drugs up under the thing. And I'm thinking to myself, ooh, but they let the daughter and the woman stay behind. You know, I don't know what the discussion was. I know that they pulled them all to the side. And for some reason, they let her and the child go, which is sweet, because they could have kept them all detained, you know, because that's all a part of their luggage, right? And so I've seen a lot of things. But the one thing I didn't forget is that they never say, are you American? They do 3 things. United States citizen, ID. United States citizen, ID. And they listening for your voice. Because when you speak, you say, I'm a U.S. citizen. And then they point at you and they listening to you, right? Because they understand, you know, they've been trained. You understand? But one thing I can say about them, they're always respectful. I've personally never had a bad, you know, I'll tell you, honey. Because I've had some racist Latinas telling me, Ian, you get up out of here and you take your butt back to Africa. You don't belong here. We're taking over. Girl, I've heard people do me all kind of dirties. You understand what I'm saying? And I said, oh my God. I said, oh, so one minute I'm an Ian, now all of a sudden I'm a Mexican. Now you want to create me to be the Mexican. Now you want to deport me. Now you just making up stuff now. You know, you done went from telling all these people that been teaching us that we're from Africa and we need to go back to Africa, or we don't belong to this land. We're not originally from here. You understand what I'm saying? And we need to go back to where we came from. And you have no access to this land because you're not originally from here, which is what I want to get into, which is truth. One of the biggest lies that people have ever told. So that's why I wanted to give you a truth about my experience, which is the truth. I can't go by other people's experiences. I can't go about all that stuff. I seen a guy up there on social. He was basically like, why should we care? Because this been happening to us and y'all didn't care. That's the biggest lie you ever told. That's the biggest lie you have ever told. And I'm going to address that right here on TCLN because I remember I remember, darling. You're talking to the new. You want to talk to act like we don't remember? We're talking about back in the 80s. We're talking about back in the 90s, early 2000s, especially those 90s. You know. So we remember we would go to our little menial jobs to take care of our babies and stuff. You understand what I'm saying? Because I had my first baby in 1992. Like I said, I was 15 when I had my first baby. And by the time I was 16, I was able to work, had to work, you know, because I had to take care of myself and my babies. And by the time I was like, I think I was 22 when I got my first apartment. And I remember those days. I remember the days of mourning, like with people that was hurting. So don't ever say that we didn't care. Don't ever say that we didn't this. What we got tired of is that every time we extend ourselves and extend our love, we get stepped on, we get backstabbed. And now we're considered to be nobody, and we consider to be lazy and don't want to work, and and looking at the backstabbing. See, I don't just address facts on TCLN network. I address truths also, because we all need change. I need change. You need change. Everybody need change. But don't say things that's not truthful. There were a lot of people who cared, and there were people who would mourn. They knew what it was like for you to get up and go on the trucks and work hard. We knew what it was like for us to go to those little menial jobs and work hard. And we will all come back in the same neighborhood, say hi to each other, and live amongst each other. You understand what I'm saying? And I remember when back in the day when black people would be bragging, they'd be like, dang, they be packed up in there like sardines. They stick together. They stick together. They put their money together. They stick together. That was one of the main sayings that we had. Because we saw it, we lived it. So don't ever say that we didn't care. We did care. And still do to an extent. But you can't keep stomping on us every time you get a little leeway, and every time you get a little success, you working all up in politics, calling us monkeys, calling our children monkeys, and you're getting caught doing it because we've seen it, and then expect people to keep marching, to keep loving, to keep caring, and they keep getting backstabbed. That goes with even our own race. That don't just go for you. We do that with our own race. You know what I mean? Black people we get tired of that has stepped on us. They want to use us for a token and a tool. They want to use us for what they want to use it for, sales, this and this. Black people stick together. But then when black people really need black people, they want to step on you, laugh at you, mock you. So it's not just you, baby. This is not just a race thing. This is an evil thing. And people are making decisions from that. They're making decisions to say, no, we will not tolerate this kind of behavior anymore, and don't have to. No matter what race you are, do not have to. Do you understand that? Nobody deserves that kind of behavior and feel that they need to live like that amongst people, whether they your skin color or whether they another skin color, whether they of your household or of another household. People are getting to a point where enough is enough. Nobody's into that fake lovey-dovey stuff no more. If the reciprocal is not being given, the reciprocal is not going to go out. Do you understand that? So, but I just wanted to share that with you because I wanted to give you some facts, guys. A lot of people do a lot of race baiting out here, but it is beyond race. So let me get into now this is more of my opinion than it is fact. Then I gave you some truth. You understand what I'm saying? I gave you some truth. The truth is that's really my experience. I would not make that up. I'm not going to sit here and lie like that, especially if I'm going to be on camera. Now, what I believe that's been happening over the years secretly is that there have been people that are United States citizens, and it may be something in their family line where they've owned land or where they have a special calling or a purpose on their life or something like that, and they were being targeted to get rid of them. The reason why I say this is because it is very easy for you to find out if somebody is a United States citizen or not. It is not hard. If you want to know that I'm doing something I ain't got no business doing, how fast do you find that? Less than 2.5 seconds, right? And you're going to tell me that you can't do a little research to see what the person's birth certificate is. You're going to tell me that you can't do a little research to see what the person's birth certificate is, to see what their name is, Say I have a business that's filed right here in Austin, in the state of Austin. That business has been filed for 5 years. When I originally filed it, I wasn't necessarily doing anything with it. Do you understand that? And when you file a LLC, it is filed with the Secretary of State. There is no way that you're going to file with the Comptroller's Office, the Secretary of State, and you are unlawful entry, and you some type of person with a Are you serious? You're going to really be playing with the Capitol like that? So it is not that hard for people to find out, are you legal? Are you not legal? It's not that hard, guys. I'm sorry, but it's not. You understand what I'm saying? So that to me was something that was being feigned. And now after I've looked at more not cases, I'm sorry, but more facts and more data, yeah, it's happened. And like that report said, 9 times out of 10, that's not even the true number of United States citizens who have been targeted, and that was put up on them like that. So I just wanted to share that with you today. I wanted to share the facts that people think this is about Trump. This has been going long on before ICE was even created, as I showed you the facts earlier. And then when ICE was created, and if you want to make this out of Mexicans and Latinas, no, because the person who was in the head of the leadership with it, I want you to think about it. That person was Michael J. Garcia, and he wasn't the only one. Do you understand that? So guys, you got to look at some facts. I know people are used to looking at stuff and looking at commentary. I love commentary because I love news. I do. When I grew up, I was like, oh, grandmama, why you make me watch CNN? My grandmama told me one day, why come you don't want to sit down with me as a family and watch TV with me? Now I didn't say it to her because we don't talk back. We didn't talk back to our elders. But in my mind, I was thinking, because all you watch is CNN. So guys, you be blessed, you stay encouraged, and whatever dream you are pursuing, whatever actual dream you are pursuing, I don't care if it looks so small, because remember, t-shirts were created when? When were t-shirts created? I'm gonna have to look that up. But when were t-shirts created? Do you know how many t-shirts have been sold since then? Just a little plain fruit of balloon t-shirt. Those t-shirts have made trillions. Don't ever, ever underestimate your idea. You be blessed. I am signing off. I'm IBK. And until next week. And as Dan Rather would say, that's one of my favorite childhood reporters. I used to watch a little bit on TV with my grandmama on CBS. And as Dan Rather would say, courage, my friends. Courage. I'm IBK with TCLN Network. So this show is a news educational commentary show. I love to inspire and to educate. So I inform, inspire, educate. Educate to elevate so that we go from situations to solutions. I would love for you to support Cash App, PayPal. Listen, if you want to find out more information about TCLN Network, just check me out right there at YouTube. Also, you can check out my platform at www.thecreativeleadershipnetwork.com. Again, that's www.thecreativeleadershipnetwork.com. TCLN Network is a growing YouTube channel. It's also a growing network. It is not just about commentary and news. It's about making sure that we stay informed so that we make better decisions with the information that we have, whether it's voting, whether it's raising children, whether it's insight into our political arena. And that's what it's about. So I take the chaos that's out there in that world and I turn it into clarity right here on TCLN Network. I invite you to join me, to subscribe right there on YouTube. I also invite you, if you are locally right here in Austin, Texas, to watch publicly every Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. on Austin Public Television. You guys have a blessed one, okay? Thank you for tuning into TCLN Network, Austin Public. TCLN Network is independently produced by IBK Media Productions. To support TCLN Network financially, visit paypal.me/TCLN Network. Also, TCLN Channel Podcasts. To learn more about TCLN Network, visit thecreativeleadershipnetwork.com and follow on all socials, TikTok, YouTube,
and Instagram at IBK Media Works.